Mr. President.
Senator Morgan.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I rise to address this issue of the debt limit and how we are going to go forward. And I think it's important, given the conversation that I've been hearing this morning, to understand some of the key features that are under discussion. The first is that the plan that came from the House last night, the Boehner plan, it requires the second half of the debt ceiling to be lifted only if a balanced budget amendment is passed and sent out to the states. In other words, it puts a two-thirds vote of each chamber basically on the process 6 months from now. What that does is it says to our nation that we are going to be in continuous debate over this issue the next 6 months, facing a two-thirds vote that's very unlikely to happen. So this crisis is going to not end, not on August 2nd, not on August 3rd, not on August 4th, but not for 6 months into the future, and then it's not going to end because we aren't going to have a two-thirds vote. It sends exactly the wrong message to our business community, which is waiting for a sense of stability, that we are through this moment. It sends the wrong message to the international world that is looking at the question of whether they're going to buy Treasury bills. It sends the wrong message to in regards to our reputation in the world. This plan of continuing the crisis for 6 months in order to bring this nation to its knees, just so folks campaign on the fact that they will do better, if you will, does not represent the best of the American spirit, where we should be coming together to solve problems, not to extend problems, not to amplify problems, not to hurt families across the United States of America and hurt small businesses across this land. The second thing that the proposal did that we faced last night is it took defense spending off the table for 2 years. Now, why is this important? It's important because defense spending has grown by over 300% in the last decade, over 300%. It's important because the recent Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, said there are over $100 billion of defense programs that do not contribute to our national security. We must be looking at programs that do not contribute for their intended purpose if we are going to take and address our fiscal situation with the best possible path for America. And then the Speaker said, you know what, there's going to be a super committee, but I, the Speaker, am only going to allow it to consider cuts to direct spending. And I will not appoint anyone who would look at the full range of options, that is, to include programs tucked into the tax code. Now, it was just a few minutes ago, my colleague from Florida, he said, if there are tax programs which are there not because of good policy, but because of good lobbying, those need to be on the table. He is absolutely right. It is a situation where every citizen understands that whether you spend $10,000 on a grant or $10,000 on a tax credit, it is the same $10,000. Now, there is a reason. There is a reason that the Boehner plan has put tax loopholes and tax earmarks and tax programs off the table. And that is because inserted into the tax code are programs for the wealthy and the well-connected. And why do they want their programs in the tax code? Very simply. They avoid the annual authorization process. They avoid the annual appropriation process. And you can think of them as super programs because they don't get reviewed regularly. That's where the well-connected and the wealthy want to have their programs placed. And they've been very successful in that. It has been over a quarter century since we have had a systematic review of these programs. But here we are in a fiscal crisis. It makes sense to examine the tax loopholes, many of which have outlived their usefulness, they've outlived their use, and many others which may still be very valid. And those are the ones we should keep, but we need to examine all of them. Now, I had a colleague come to the floor the other day, a colleague across the aisle, and he made this argument. He said, you know, there are some tax programs that benefit the middle class. And he proceeded to put up all these charts and all these numbers about programs that benefit the middle class. And he concluded that because some of the tax programs benefit the middle class, no tax programs should be discussed as part of this issue. Well, let's apply the same logic to our appropriation programs. Can't anyone say that there are some spending programs, some direct spending programs that benefit the middle class? But then do we turn around and say all of these programs should be left unexamined as a result? Of course not. Nor was my colleague across the aisle willing to make that argument. But why did he make such an absurd argument? That because some programs are useful, we shouldn't look at any of the programs in the tax code? Because he wanted to protect the programs for the wealthy and well-connected. And I'll tell you today, there's something terribly wrong with coming to this floor to protect the programs for the best off in our society and doing so under the false claim that you're here to fight for working families. That is wrong. And that is why we must look at every single program. There's another problem in the bill that we had, and that is if you take Boehner at his word, and he's going to take the $1.5 trillion that are in the tax code under tax expenditures and not allow them to be examined, then the only place you end up going to reach the numbers involved are Medicaid and Medicare. Medicaid, health care for the poor. Medicare, health care for our seniors. It seems that there are members of this chamber who want to think of health care as a special privilege for only those who are wealthy in our society. Well, maybe they should come and live in my community, where we understand that the quality of life is deeply dependent upon your health. There was indeed a very interesting experiment in Oregon over the last few years. We had funds, not enough funds for everyone to participate in Medicaid. It's called the Oregon Health Plan. And so there was a lottery. So for the first time anywhere in the nation, there was the ability to study those who got to sign up against a control group of those who didn't. Found out that Medicaid made a profound difference in people's lives. It shouldn't come as any surprise that health care makes a profound difference. But many people on this floor have questioned whether health care really matters. It's always interesting to hear people who have access to health care, who have it because they're wealthy, who have it because they have a job right here that gives them health care, wondering why we should bother to care about health care for others. These issues are issues we must address as we go forward. Now, let me just check in here on my time. 2.5 minutes. Let me note then that if we proceed with a plan that is guaranteed to paralyze this chamber over the next 6 months with an impossible hurdle at the end of that period, we will destroy this economy. We are flat right now. We're not gaining ground. We had a bill, small business innovation bill, research bill here on the floor, debated it for 6 weeks, routine bill. My colleagues across the aisle voted not to end debate so that there couldn't be a vote on taking this bill forward. Deeply determined to prevent bills creating jobs from getting to the President's desk. Well, indeed, because we haven't been able to take those key pieces of legislation and go forward, here we are with a flat economy. And now they want to take it to its knees. Because if we create this uncertainty over the next 6 months, the interest rate goes up on the Treasury bills. The interest rate goes up on home mortgages. The interest rate goes up on car loans. The interest rate goes up on small businesses. And we get greater unemployment. And is that the outcome we want? Interest is an empty tax. A tax on every family. They estimate it to be about $2,000 a year, and it buys us nothing. Nothing but destruction of the economy. And that must not happen. Thank you, Mr. President.